Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a massive, permanent paradigm shift in the economics of global trade. We aren't just talking about some fleeting new trend or a minor customs update you can just hand off to the paperwork department. No, we're talking about a fundamental rewriting of the rules. How goods physically move around the planet, how they're priced, who actually gets to play in the market, the whole shebang is changing. So if you're managing complex supply chains, involved in international business, or really just want to understand the profound future of global economics, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get right into it.
To truly grasp this shift, we've got to start right here with a critical question. Think about it. What is the single most valuable new currency in global trade today? Now, if you ask a veteran logistics pro, they might instinctively point to traditional fiat, the US dollar, the euro, the yen. Or maybe they'd argue speed to market is the real currency, or even the physical raw materials themselves. But honestly, in today's rapidly shifting regulatory environment, those old answers completely miss the single most disruptive element hitting the market.
The answer? Transparency. We have officially entered an era where the days of opaque, black box operations are totally over. Think about it. Up until very recently, as long as a product arrived on time and under budget, nobody really asked what was happening deep inside that supply chain. You source steel from a Tier 3 supplier halfway across the world? Great, what's the price per ton? Well, those days are gone. Today, the data attached to your product is literally just as critical as the dollars you pay for it. The information is the asset.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the new trade currency. 2, what exactly is CBAM? 3, carbon data equals financial cost. 4, the supply chain transparency shift. 5, navigating the new global market. And finally, 6, the future of global trade. Let's do this. Part 1, the new trade currency, when data becomes dollars.
Okay, so we're witnessing a moment in history where abstract environmental concepts are manifesting as hard, tangible financial borders. Data is literally becoming dollars. As our source material lays out so perfectly, supply chain transparency is the new currency of global trade. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that tracking the carbon footprint of your supply chain, it's no longer just a nice-to-have sustainability metric. It's not just a bullet point for your annual corporate social responsibility report with pretty pictures of green trees. It is a hard, unavoidable financial reality with binary consequences. This shift is going to dictate whether a business stays competitive or just gets completely priced out of the global market entirely. We're seeing the balance of power rapidly shift from whoever has the absolute cheapest labor straight to whoever has the absolute best, most verifiable data.
Part 2. What exactly is CBAM? Demystifying the bureaucracy.
You've probably seen this acronym making waves in international business news, so let's break it down. The Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, is a regulatory solution specifically designed to stop something called carbon leakage. Okay, what does that mean? Imagine a region, let's say the European Union, imposes really strict, expensive climate regulations. Historically, a manufacturer might just say, you know what, I'm out, shut down their factory, and move production to a country with zero climate rules. They pollute all they want, make the product for pennies, and ship that cheaper product right back into the strict region. That's carbon leakage. You outsource the pollution, but keep the profits. CBAM is the regulatory net built to catch that exact maneuver. It slaps a fair financial price on goods right at the border, based on the carbon emitted during their production. It completely levels the playing field. You can't just hide behind a border to escape your carbon costs anymore.
Now, the legislation itself is literally hundreds of pages of dense bureaucracy, but the real-world mechanics actually just break down into 3 straightforward phases. Step 1, you absolutely must track the real emissions generated while making the goods. We're talking factory floor energy usage, fuel consumption, the whole carbon footprint. Step 2, when that good hits the border of a CBAM-enforced region, you have to report that highly specific carbon data to customs, fully verified. Step 3, you pay an adjusted carbon price based on that data. This is where the financial hit actually happens. Authorities calculate the difference between the carbon price already paid in the country of origin and the price in the importing region, and you pay the balance. It's a pretty brilliant, inescapable trap for hidden emissions.
Moving to Part 3, carbon data equals financial cost, the literal currency aspect. This brings us to the most visceral part of our explainer. If you buy, sell, or move goods across borders, your data is now your wallet. I really want to emphasize that metaphor because it's the new reality. Being able to cleanly and accurately prove exactly how a product was made is just as important as the physical product itself. Every single gap in your carbon reporting translates directly into punitive fees that are going to just eat away your profit margins right there at the customs checkpoint. Seriously, if your data is messy, poor, or just missing entirely, you're going to bleed capital at the border.
Let's put that into perspective. Consider how varying levels of transparency linearly translate into either a competitive edge or a crushing financial burden. Imagine you're bringing in a shipment of aluminum, but you can't verify the factory's power source. Because that data is opaque or missing, customs doesn't just guess. They assume the absolute worst-case emissions for that category. Boom. You get hit with a massive default border tax. You're paying a huge premium for secrecy. But on the flip side, if you bring in that same shipment and have low emissions backed by transparent, rock-solid data, you pay a significantly lower border tax. Transparency directly lowers your cost of doing international business, giving you a massive pricing advantage over competitors who simply can't prove their footprint.
Part 4. The Supply Chain Transparency Shift. The Paradigm Shift.
Because of this hard financial reality, we're watching an entire global industry pivot in real time. Just think about the stark contrast between these two models. In the old supply chain, it was all about the lowest financial cost and product quality. Emissions were totally hidden, out of sight, out of mind. Nobody cared if a factory halfway across the globe was burning coal, as long as the widgets were cheap. The new supply chain? Completely different beast. It requires forced transparency. You need auditable carbon data ready to hand over to border authorities. And here's the kicker. It's not just your direct facilities anymore. Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers, the folks supplying your suppliers, they are now your direct financial responsibility. Their hidden emissions on the other side of the planet will now mathematically impact your final costs at import.
Part 5. Navigating the New Global Market. Adapting to the Rules. So what do international business professionals actually need to do to survive and thrive when transparency is the mandated currency? Well, it really comes down to 3 essential actions, and honestly, each one requires a massive operational shift. First, implement strict tracking of production emissions. That means deep, scientific life cycle assessments of your products. Think sensors, software, tracking down to the literal kilowatt hour used on the factory floor. Second, audit your entire international supply chain. You can't just take a supplier's word for it anymore. You have to send third-party auditors to verify their claims, because remember, their carbon footprint is your tax burden. And third, prepare for financial carbon adjustments at customs. Your finance, procurement, and logistics teams need to be in total sync, projecting carbon taxes alongside shipping fees well before a product even leaves its origin port.
And hey, if you're wondering exactly how much wiggle room companies have to delay this, or how much patience border authorities will have for opaque carbon reporting, the answer is a big fat 0. Lack of transparency is simply no longer an option. If you don't have the data, your goods either face punitive default taxes that absolutely destroy your profit margins, or they simply get rejected at the border. Period.
Part 6. The Future of Global Trade. The Permanent Shift.
As we look out toward the horizon, it's absolutely crucial to understand the long-term implications here. This isn't just a hurdle for today. It is the foundation for tomorrow. Charting this journey, the evolution is incredibly clear. Pre-2020s, the entire focus was just cost and quality, a total race to the bottom for price. Now, with regulations like CBAM introducing forced transparency and coming into full financial force by 2026, we are feeling that transitional squeeze. But look ahead to the 2030s. We're going to see a world where carbon data acts as a primary trade currency. Imagine a global ecosystem where the carbon footprint of every single component is embedded into a digital product passport, maybe logged immutably on a blockchain. That data gets scanned and verified as easily as a barcode at the grocery store. It'll be seamlessly integrated into every invoice, every manifest, every contract. This is a permanent structural evolution of global commerce.
Which leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. As the old ways of doing business fade away, and this new era of carbon accountability fully takes over the borders, is your supply chain ready to pay with transparency? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a clear lens to view the incredible transformation happening in global trade today. Catch you next time.